could forgive the secret spending. I could maybe forgive her cold shoulder. But when I found those router logs showing activity while I was at work, I went scorched earth. I pulled my work truck into the driveway on Maple Ridge Drive, the diesel engine ticking and hissing as it cooled down from another 10-hour day at Hartwell Construction. October in Ohio meant the leaves were turning, and Mrs. Henderson next door was raking her front yard while her dog barked at something only he could see. 15 years of marriage, same routine, home by 5:30, dinner by 6, kids fighting over homework by 6:15. The familiar weight of my hard hat felt heavier as I climbed down from the cab, steel-toed boots hitting the concrete with that solid thud I'd grown used to. My hands, permanently stained with grease and hydraulic fluid, fumbled with my keys. Inside, I could hear Melissa calling out from the kitchen. "Steve, that you?" "Yes, ma'am," I called back, hanging my hard hat on the hook by the door where it belonged. The scent of something cooking, maybe meatloaf, mixed with the lingering smell of diesel on my clothes. Emma looked up from the dining table where she was spread out with math homework, her blonde hair falling across her face. "Dad, can you help me with this algebra? Mom says she doesn't remember how to do it." "After dinner, sweetheart." I ruffled her hair as I passed, noting Tyler hunched over his own books, pencil moving frantically. The kid was 9 and already more organized than most adults I knew. Everything felt normal, predictable, safe. That's how I liked it. After dinner, while Melissa loaded the dishwasher and the kids argued over who got to pick the TV channel, I settled into my home office to check the monthly bills. The internet statement sat on top of the pile, and I opened it out of habit more than anything else. As someone who troubleshoots hydraulic systems daily, I notice patterns others miss. It's just how my brain works. The router usage report showed something odd. Data spikes during weekday afternoons, consistently between 1:30 and 3:45 p.m. I adjusted my reading glasses, the ones Melissa bought me last Christmas, and studied the numbers again. "That's weird," I muttered to myself. The house should be empty during those hours. Kids at school, Melissa running errands or visiting her mother. Must be automatic updates or something. Windows doing its thing, maybe streaming services updating. I filed it away mentally, the same way I'd note a strange sound in an excavator engine. Something to keep an eye on. 3 days later, I checking those router logs again during lunch break. Sitting in my truck cab at the Hartwell yard, hard hat on the dashboard, I scrolled through weeks of data on my phone. The October sun felt warm through the windshield, but there was a chill in the air that promised winter wasn't far off. The pattern was consistent. Heavy internet usage every weekday afternoon when nobody should be home. Not just a little usage. Significant data consumption. Streaming video levels of usage. My foreman, Big Jim, honked his horn from across the yard, signaling break was over. I pocketed my phone and climbed back onto my bulldozer, but the digital mystery gnawed at me as I pushed dirt around for the next 4 hours. Something didn't add up, and my methodical mind wouldn't let it go. That evening, I decided to ask some casual questions. Melissa was loading the dishwasher, her movements efficient but distracted. She'd been like that a lot lately, present but not really there. "How was your day?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "Oh, same as always." She didn't look up from the plates she was arranging. "Grocery shopping, errands. Sometimes I stop by Mom's." Emma's piano practice drifted in from the living room, some classical piece her teacher had assigned. The melody was pretty, but I could hear her hitting wrong notes and starting over. "You spend much time at your mom's these days?" I kept my voice casual. "Not really. Maybe once a week." Melissa's voice carried that distant tone I'd noticed more lately. "Why?" "Just wondering. Seems like you're out and about a lot." She finally looked at me then, and for a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt? Annoyance? It was gone too fast to tell. I have to get out of the house sometime, Steve. I can't just sit here all day waiting for everyone to come home. Fair enough. I nodded and let it drop, but as I watched her reflection in the kitchen window, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. 14 months ago, maybe 15, she'd seemed different. More distracted, always checking her phone. I'd attributed it to stress, the kids getting older, her mother's health issues. But now, with those router logs fresh in my mind, I started keeping track. Nothing fancy, just a small notebook I kept in my truck's glove compartment, next to my registration and a pack of gum. Tuesday, Melissa left at 1:15 p.m., returned at 4:10 p.m. I noted it during my lunch break, sitting in the cab while the guys played cards at the picnic table. Wednesday, left 1:20 p.m., returned 3:50 p.m. I wrote that down too, my handwriting looking shaky in the cramped truck cab. The October wind rattled my windows, and I pulled my jacket tighter. Thursday, left 1:25 p.m., returned 4:05 p.m. The times aligned perfectly with the internet activity spikes. My hands, calloused from years of operating heavy machinery, felt unsteady as I wrote. This wasn't paranoia, this was data. Cold, digital evidence that something was happening in my empty house during those afternoon hours. Friday afternoon, I made an excuse to leave work early. Told Big Jim I had a dentist appointment, which wasn't entirely a lie. I'd been meaning to schedule a cleaning for months. He waved me off without question. I'd been working for Hartwell for 8 years and never called in sick. I parked 2 blocks from home and walked through the neighborhood I'd called home for nearly a decade. Maple Ridge Drive looked peaceful in the afternoon sun. Kids' bikes scattered on lawns, the Hendersons' dog still barking at invisible threats, Mrs. Chen from 3 houses down watering her flower beds. My house appeared empty from the outside. Melissa's sedan was gone, as expected. The kids wouldn't be home from school for another hour. But as I approached my own driveway, something made me stop. Fresh tire tracks, wider and deeper than Melissa's car would make. The tread pattern was different too, more aggressive, like an SUV or pickup truck. The tracks curved into my driveway and back out, overlapping Melissa's usual path. My pulse quickened, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest that came when a piece of heavy equipment started making the wrong kind of noise. Something was definitely wrong here. I walked back to my truck, those tire tracks burned into my memory. The afternoon sun felt too bright, too normal for what I'd just discovered. My hands fumbled with the keys as I started the engine, the familiar rumble doing nothing to calm my nerves. Back at the construction site, I climbed into the excavator's cab and tried to focus on work. The machine's hydraulic arms responded to my commands: lift, pivot, dump. But my mind kept drifting to those tracks in my driveway. 20 tons of steel and diesel under my control, and I couldn't control my own thoughts. "Kowalski, you okay up there?" Big Jim's voice crackled through the radio. "You're digging like you're hunting for buried treasure." I keyed the mic. "Sorry, boss, just tired." During the 3 p.m. break, while the other guys gathered around the water cooler, I pulled out my phone and opened the router monitoring app. My throat tightened. Active usage, 847 megabytes downloaded in the last hour. Streaming video, high bandwidth. Right now, as I sat here covered in dust and diesel fumes, someone was using my internet. The October sun beat down on the construction site, dust swirling around my machine like a miniature tornado. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage was shifting like loose soil under pressure. 15 years of building something together, and now... I checked the time, 3:17 p.m. Melissa should be alone at home, maybe doing laundry or watching her afternoon talk shows. But that bandwidth usage told a different story. That weekend felt like walking through a minefield. Saturday morning, Melissa loaded Emma and Tyler into her sedan for soccer practice. same as every weekend for the past 3 years. "You sure you don't want to come?" she asked, adjusting her rearview mirror. "Emma's got that tournament game." "Got some things to fix in the garage," I said, which was true enough. I always had something to fix. She nodded and backed out of the driveway, tires crunching over the same spot where I'd found those other tracks. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then went back inside. The house felt different now. I examined our living room with new eyes, the kind of attention to detail that keeps you safe around massive machinery. The couch cushions seemed differently arranged, not quite matching the way Melissa usually positioned them. She was particular about that sort of thing, always fluffing and adjusting. In the kitchen sink sat a coffee mug I didn't recognize. Dark blue ceramic with some kind of logo I couldn't make out. Not from our usual set. We'd had the same white mugs for 8 years, wedding gifts from Melissa's aunt. This one was heavier, more expensive looking. I picked it up, turning it in my hands. Still had coffee residue at the bottom, dried but not old. Someone had used this recently. My chest tightened as I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Everything looked normal at first glance. Bed made, Melissa's reading glasses on the nightstand, my work clothes from yesterday folded on the chair. But something was off. On Melissa's pillow, I found a single hair. Darker than hers, coarser. Male. I held it up to the window light, my hands shaking slightly. This wasn't imagination or paranoia. This was real. This was happening in my own bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, still holding that hair, and felt something break inside me. Not anger yet, that would come later. Just emptiness, like someone had hollowed me out with a backhoe. Monday morning, I drove to the electronics store on 5th Street before work. The kid behind the counter couldn't have been older than Tyler, all enthusiasm and technical jargon I didn't need. "You want something discreet?" he asked, showing me a tablet about the size of a paperback book. "This one's got motion detection, sends alerts to your phone. Pretty basic setup." "That'll work." At home, I positioned the tablet behind some books on the living room shelf, angling it to capture the main seating area. The device's black screen reflected my face back at me, a man who moved tons of earth daily but couldn't move the growing weight in his chest. "Steve?" Melissa called from upstairs. "Have you seen my silver earrings? The ones with the little diamonds?" "No," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Check your jewelry box." I did. "They're not there." I adjusted the tablet's angle one more time, making sure the lens had a clear view. "Maybe they fell behind the dresser." "Maybe." Her footsteps moved across the bedroom floor above me. "I could have sworn I left them right on the nightstand." The first motion alert came Tuesday at 1:47 p.m. My phone buzzed while I was operating the bulldozer at a downtown demolition site, pushing debris from an old warehouse into neat piles for the dump trucks. The vibration against my leg made my heart hammer. I waited until break to check it. The guys were playing cards at their usual picnic table, arguing about the Browns' chances this season. I sat alone in my truck cab and opened the app. The timestamp showed movement in my living room, but the image was too blurry to make out details. Just shapes moving across my carpet, shadows shifting in the afternoon light. Someone was definitely in my house. The diesel fumes from nearby equipment suddenly made me nauseous. I've been married 15 years. 15 years of coming home to the same house, the same routine, the same woman. And now she was bringing someone else into our home while our children were at school. Wednesday brought clearer footage. I watched the grainy video during lunch, sitting alone in my truck with the engine off. 2 figures on my couch, Melissa and a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair, broad shoulders, expensive-looking clothes that screamed office job. White collar, soft hands. They were sitting close. Too close. The timestamp read 2:23 p.m., exactly when Melissa had told me she was grocery shopping at the Kroger on Hamilton Road. The router logs spread across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. 1:30 p.m. to 3:45 p.m., every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I couldn't stop staring at those timestamps. Each entry burned into my memory like welding sparks. I traced the pattern with my finger, the calluses catching on the paper. The house felt different now. Every creak of the floorboards, every settling sound carried weight. Made me wonder what else I'd been missing while I was moving dirt 10 miles away. The morning light streamed through windows that suddenly felt like they were watching me back. I thought about the GPS system on my excavator at work, how it tracked every movement, every location, down to the foot. Company used it to monitor million-dollar equipment. If it works for heavy machinery, I muttered to the empty kitchen, it'll work for a Honda Civic. At Hartwell Construction, diesel fumes mixed with the smell of hot metal and hydraulic fluid. I found Tommy during lunch break, sitting on a stack of concrete barriers with his sandwich. The equipment yard buzzed around us, engines idling, air compressors hissing, the constant background noise of a working site. "I need a favor," I said, keeping my voice level. Matter of fact, like asking to borrow a wrench. "Got a GPS tracker I can use?" Tommy raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. 15 years of friendship buys that kind of trust. He disappeared into the shop trailer and came back with a small magnetic device, black plastic about the size of a matchbox. "Company uses these to track the smaller equipment," he said, handing it over. "Battery lasts about 2 weeks." I felt its weight in my palm like a secret. The afternoon sun beat down on steel and concrete as I walked back to my excavator, the familiar controls suddenly feeling like preparation for something bigger. The machine responded to every touch, every lever movement precise and deliberate. But my mind wasn't on the job. It was on that little black box in my pocket and what it might tell me. That evening, I waited until I heard the shower running upstairs. Water hitting tile, the sound of Melissa washing off whatever she'd been doing during her afternoon errands. The garage felt cooler than the house, fluorescent light casting harsh shadows on concrete. The Honda sat there innocent as Sunday morning, still warm from her grocery run. I could smell the faint odor of someone else's cologne mixed with her usual perfume. My hands shook slightly as I grabbed a creeper and slid under the rear bumper. The concrete pressed cold against my back. Above me, metal and plastic components that I'd never paid attention to before. I found a good spot near the spare tire well, clean metal that would hold the magnet. The GPS tracker clicked into place with a soft thud that sounded thunderous in the quiet space. Upstairs, the water stopped running. I rolled out from under the car, brushed dust and grit from my work shirt, and walked back inside like nothing had happened. Melissa emerged from the bathroom in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, asking about dinner plans with the same casual tone she'd used for months. "Whatever you want," I said, watching her face for any sign that she knew. But she just smiled and started talking about picking up Emma from soccer practice. 3 days of tracking data painted a picture clearer than any blueprint I'd ever read. Red dots on my laptop screen clustered around familiar places: Kroger, the kids' school, home. Normal patterns of a normal life. But there was an outlier that made my chest tight. 1247 Oakwood Drive, visited every Tuesday and Thursday during those exact router log times. I zoomed in on the satellite view, studying the modest 2-story house with its neat lawn and attached garage. My jaw tightened as I took screenshots, the cursor hovering over that address like a crosshair. The basement workshop around me felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in with the weight of confirmation. All those afternoons when she'd come home with one grocery bag and stories about long lines at the store. I should have known. 20 years operating heavy equipment teaches you to read patterns, to spot when something's off. But I'd been looking at the wrong machine. I drove past 1247 Oakwood Drive on my lunch break, the company truck rumbling slowly down the suburban street. Had to see it with my own eyes, not just as a dot on a screen. The house looked ordinary enough. Beige siding, red front door, children's bikes scattered on the porch. A silver sedan sat in the driveway, and I memorized the license plate without thinking. Force of habit from years of documenting equipment serial numbers. My construction-trained eye noted details automatically. Well-maintained gutters, fresh mulch around the flower beds, the kind of careful upkeep that spoke of stability and pride. This wasn't some bachelor pad or cheap apartment where married women went to make mistakes. Someone lived here. Someone with a life, maybe kids of their own. And Melissa was walking into that world twice a week, bringing our problems with her. The realization hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. This wasn't just about us anymore. Back at the job site, I operated my excavator with the same mechanical precision I'd used for 15 years. Each scoop of earth mirrored how I approached problems. Dig deep, move deliberately, uncover what's buried. But my mind wasn't on moving dirt. During break, I called my buddy at the DMV, traded a case of beer for information, the kind of favor that happens between guys who've known each other since high school. The name came back within an hour. Marcus Brennan, age 38, insurance adjuster. Address confirmed as 1247 Oakwood Drive. I stared at the printout in my truck, memorizing every detail. The afternoon heat shimmered off the excavator's yellow metal as I processed this new reality. Melissa wasn't just cheating on me. She was helping destroy another family too. Marcus Brennan, insurance adjuster, probably wore a suit to work, had soft hands that never touched a wrench or felt the bite of winter wind on a job site. The kind of man who solved problems with phone calls instead of muscle. And now I had a name for the ghost in my house. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Melissa breathed steadily beside me. The fan turned overhead, casting shadows that moved like my thoughts, circular, endless, getting nowhere. Marcus Brennan, insurance adjuster. The name had weight now, substance, not just the other man anymore, but a real person with a job, an address, a life that intersected with mine in the worst possible way. I turned my head slightly, studying Melissa's profile in the dim light filtering through the blinds. 15 years of marriage, and I was looking at a stranger. Her lips were slightly parted, peaceful in sleep. No guilt lines around her eyes, no tension in her shoulders. How did she do it? How did she come home to our bed every night after being with him? The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. in harsh red numbers. I'd been lying here for 2 hours, my mind cataloging every detail I'd learned about Marcus Brennan. Age 38, drove a silver sedan, worked downtown in one of those glass towers where people wore suits and solved problems with paperwork instead of sweat. Melissa shifted, murmuring something I couldn't make out. Her hand brushed against my arm, and I fought the urge to pull away. Everything felt contaminated now. The sheets, the mattress, this whole damn house. My hands clenched into fists under the covers. Part of me wanted to shake her awake right now, demand answers, end this charade. But that wasn't how you handled complex problems. Evidence first, action second. That's how you avoided costly mistakes. The next day, I spent my lunch break parked across from Pinnacle Insurance Group downtown. The building rose 20 stories of glass and steel, the kind of place where Marcus Brennan spent his days adjusting claims and destroying families. At 12:30 exactly, he emerged from the lobby. Average height, brown hair starting to thin at the crown, wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. He walked with easy confidence, checking his phone as he headed down the sidewalk. I followed at a distance, my work boots heavy on the concrete. The city felt foreign after spending my days on construction sites. Too many people, too much noise, air that tasted of exhaust instead of honest dirt. Marcus turned into a coffee shop called Bean there, and I waited a full minute before following him inside. The place smelled like espresso and pastries, filled with the lunch crowd of office workers and college students. "The usual, Marcus?" the barista called out, already reaching for a cup. "You know it, Sarah. Large dark roast, splash of cream." I ordered black coffee and found a table across the room, studying him like I'd study a complex excavation site. He looked so ordinary, so forgettable. If I'd passed him on the street, I wouldn't have given him a second glance. But this was the man who knew my wife's body better than I did these days. Marcus sat at a corner table and made a phone call. Even from across the room, I could see his face light up during the conversation. The same expression I used to see on Melissa's face when she talked to me, back when we still talked about things that mattered. "Miss you too," I heard him say as he hung up. My grip tightened on the coffee cup until my knuckles went white. This wasn't just an affair. This was a relationship, complete with pet names and inside jokes and all the intimacy that used to belong to me. That evening, I dove deeper into my research. Marcus Brennan's social media painted a picture of suburban happiness that looked disturbingly familiar. Family photos from last Christmas, kids' soccer games, vacation shots from some beach resort. His wife's name was Jennifer. Pretty woman with dark hair and a genuine smile, the kind that reached her eyes. She posted about her children's achievements, shared recipes, tagged Marcus in anniversary posts that made my stomach turn. 12 years with my best friend, read her post from last June, complete with a photo of them at some fancy restaurant. Marcus had his arm around her, both of them laughing at something off camera. I screenshot everything, building my case like I'd plan a foundation pour. Each piece of evidence added weight to the structure I was building, a monument to betrayal that would be impossible to ignore. Their kids were 10 and 7, close to Emma and Tyler's ages. The boy played Little League, just like Tyler. The girl took dance classes, just like Emma used to before we couldn't afford them anymore. 2 families, 4 children, all built on the same lie. The GPS data from the past week revealed an escalating pattern. Melissa's visits to Oakwood Drive were getting longer, bolder. Tuesday's visit lasted until 4:45 p.m. Thursday stretched past 5 o'clock. She was pushing boundaries, getting comfortable. The router logs confirmed increased activity during these extended sessions, video calls maybe, or streaming something together. Building intimacy while I moved tons of earth and counted the hours until I could come home to what I thought was my sanctuary. I spread the evidence across my workbench like battle plans. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals that matched her affair schedule, screenshots of router activity, photos of Marcus's house, his car, his office building. The basement workshop smelled of sawdust and motor oil, familiar scents that usually calmed me. But tonight they felt like the smell of my old life, the one that was ending whether I wanted it to or not. My phone buzzed. Text from Melissa. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message, then at the GPS tracker data showing her car hadn't moved from our driveway all day. She wasn't working late. She was planning her next move, probably texting Marcus right now about when they could meet again. The lies were getting lazy. That should have made me angry, but instead I felt something colder. She didn't respect me enough to even try anymore. The marriage certificate hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Marcus Brennan, married to Jennifer Lynn Brennan 12 years ago. Just 3 years after Melissa and I had stood in that same courthouse, promising to love and honor each other. I stared at the document on my laptop screen, the official seal making it real in a way that photos and social media posts couldn't. 2 marriages, 2 sets of vows, all being destroyed by the same selfish decision. The workshop's fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting intermittent shadows across the evidence spread before me. 12 years. Jennifer Brennan had trusted her husband for 12 years, just like I'd trusted mine for 15. She deserved to know. The thought hit me with startling clarity. Jennifer Brennan was living the same lie I was, coming home to a husband who smelled like another woman's perfume, wondering why he seemed distracted during dinner conversations. But telling her would detonate a nuclear bomb. 2 families destroyed instead of 1. 4 children learning that their parents weren't the people they thought they were. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, then stopped. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice, about giving Jennifer Brennan the same choice I was facing, the choice to live with the truth instead of a comfortable lie. The cursor blinked on Marcus's work email address. All I had to do was type a message, attach the evidence, hit send. Let him explain to his wife why he was getting photos of himself entering my house while their children were at school. But first, I needed to know exactly how deep this went, because something told me I was still only seeing the surface of what Melissa and Marcus had built together. The basement felt smaller suddenly, walls pressing in with the weight of decisions I wasn't ready to make. Outside, a car door slammed, and I heard Melissa's key in the front door lock. "Steve, I'm home!" I closed the laptop and listened to her footsteps overhead, moving through our house like she owned it, like she hadn't spent the afternoon planning her next betrayal. Soon, I thought. Very soon, we'd all stop pretending. The computer screen burned my eyes in the dark home office, but I couldn't look away. Marcus Brennan's LinkedIn profile stared back at me. Clean-cut insurance adjuster, 15 years at Pinnacle Group, married with 2 kids. Just like me. I scrolled through his work history, each promotion dated and documented. While I was running heavy equipment in mud and diesel fumes, this guy climbed corporate ladders in climate-controlled offices. Soft hands. Probably never changed his own oil. The router logs glowed on my second monitor. 1:30 to 3:45 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months. Digital proof of systematic deception. I rubbed my eyes and checked the timestamps again. Same pattern, same duration. Melissa wasn't just cheating, she was scheduling it like a business meeting. My coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I took another sip anyway. The bitter taste matched my mood. 14 months. That's how long Jennifer said this had been going on. 14 months of grocery shopping and book club meetings, while I worked overtime to pay for our mortgage, our cars, our kids, everything. I clicked on Marcus's company photo again. He looked ordinary. Brown hair, average build, the kind of smile they teach you in corporate training seminars. This was the man my wife chose over me? This was worth destroying 2 families? The kitchen felt different when I walked through it the next morning. Every surface looked contaminated somehow. The counter where Melissa made her coffee, the table where we used to eat dinner together, the refrigerator covered with Emma and Tyler's school photos. All of it felt like evidence in a crime scene I was still discovering. I opened the cabinet and pulled out the bread, going through the motions of making my usual sandwich. Peanut butter, strawberry jam, cut diagonally. Muscle memory from 20 years of packed lunches. But my hands moved automatically while my brain calculated damages. Hotel receipts. $2,800 withdrawn from our joint savings over 6 months. Text messages Jennifer had forwarded showing Marcus calling Melissa baby and gorgeous. Photos of them holding hands in restaurant parking lots. Each piece of evidence stacked like blueprints for demolition. I bit into the sandwich and tasted nothing. Even this simple lunch, something Melissa used to make for me every morning before work, felt like another theft from my old life. How many mornings had she stood in this same spot, spreading peanut butter while planning her next rendezvous? The mayonnaise jar sat open on the counter. I stared at it for a long moment, remembering how she always forgot to put it back in the fridge. Such a small thing. Now it felt like evidence of her carelessness with everything that mattered. At the Hartwell construction yard, I climbed into the excavator cab with unusual heaviness. The familiar ritual: adjust the seat, check the mirrors, test the hydraulics, usually centered me. Today it felt like going through the motions of someone else's life. The diesel engine rumbled to life beneath me, and I positioned the machine over the foundation we were digging for a new office complex. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days creating stable foundations while my own crumbled beneath me like wet sand. I lowered the bucket and bit into the earth. Tons of dirt responded to precise movements of my hands and feet. If only human relationships were this straightforward. Push the lever, get predictable results. No hidden agendas, no secret meetings, no lies buried beneath the surface. The rhythmic motion of dig, lift, dump usually calmed my mind, but today it felt like marking time. Each scoop represented another decision I wasn't ready to make. Divorce lawyers, custody battles, splitting assets, explaining to Emma and Tyler why Daddy and Mommy couldn't live together anymore. My military training kicked in without conscious thought. 20 years ago, Sergeant Martinez taught us to compartmentalize emotions during crisis situations. Feel later, soldier. Think now. The technique had kept me alive overseas, and it was keeping me functional now. I didn't cry or rage or punch the cab walls like some men might. Instead, I calculated. Each bucket of earth became a tactical consideration. How much evidence did I need? What would custody look like? Could I afford the mortgage alone? The excavator moved with mechanical precision while my mind planned war. Other operators probably saw me working normally. Tommy waved from his bulldozer across the site, and I raised my hand in response. Normal gesture, normal day. But inside the cab, I was applying the same methodical approach that once helped me defuse roadside bombs in Afghanistan. During lunch break, I sat in my truck with the engine off and pulled out my phone. Jennifer had sent 3 more messages overnight. Screenshots of Marcus's credit card statements, photos of him leaving the Marriott downtown, timestamps that matched Melissa's grocery runs perfectly. I scrolled through the evidence with the same attention to detail I used reading excavation blueprints. Every charge was documented, every location verified, every timeline cross-referenced. The betrayal wasn't just sexual or emotional, it was financial, logistical, systematically planned. One photo showed Marcus and Melissa walking hand in hand through the hotel parking garage. Melissa wore the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. Happy, relaxed, like the weight of our marriage had been lifted from her shoulders. My chest tightened as rage built like pressure in a hydraulic line. For one terrifying moment, I imagined positioning the excavator bucket over Marcus's silver sedan and crushing it like an empty beer can. The fantasy felt so real, my hands started shaking. I set the phone down and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. This wasn't me. I didn't solve problems with violence. I solved them with planning, preparation, and patience. But damn if the fantasy didn't feel good for those few seconds. I forced myself to breathe, counting to 10 like Dr. Hammond taught me after my deployment. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Violence solves nothing. It only creates more problems, more complications, more ways for everything to spiral out of control. I thought of Emma at soccer practice, probably laughing with her teammates right now. Tyler at his friend's house, building Lego spaceships without a care in the world. They needed stability during whatever came next, not a father who lost his temper and did something stupid that would land him in jail. The anger didn't disappear. It transformed into something colder, more useful. Strategic thinking. Melissa wanted to play games? Fine. But she was playing against someone who'd spent years in situations where mistakes meant death. This required precision, not emotion. I started the truck and headed back to the excavator. The afternoon shift stretched ahead like a battle plan. Every movement calculated, every decision measured against long-term consequences. My phone buzzed against my leg. Text message from Melissa. Picking up Emma from soccer practice, then grocery shopping. Home by 6. The casual lie felt like a slap across the face. Right now, she was probably texting Marcus, planning their next hotel meeting. Maybe they were already together, laughing about how easy it was to fool the dumb construction worker who spent his days moving dirt. I took a screenshot of her message. More evidence for David Chen. Every communication was potential ammunition now. The woman who used to be my wife had no idea she was building the case against herself, one lie at a time. The excavator bucket bit into clay soil with satisfying force as I channeled my frustration into productive work. Each scoop felt like progress, like forward momentum when everything else in my life had stalled. The machine responded to my commands without question, without deception, without hidden agendas. "Steve!" Danny Martinez jogged over during the afternoon break, hard hat in his hand. "You seem off today, man. Everything okay?" I shut down the engine and climbed out, wiping sweat from my forehead with my sleeve. "Just tired. This heat's been getting to me." Danny studied my face with the concern of someone who'd worked construction for 20 years. "You sure? You've been quiet all week, and I saw you sitting in your truck at lunch instead of eating with the crew." "Equipment maintenance reports," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "Trying to stay caught up on paperwork." He nodded but didn't look convinced. "Well, if you need to talk about anything, you know where to find me." After Danny walked away, the loneliness hit me like a physical weight. I couldn't discuss this with friends. Too embarrassing. Couldn't tell my kids. Too damaging. Couldn't even confide in my own brother without admitting I'd been blind to what was happening in my own house. Even surrounded by my crew, I felt completely alone in this nightmare that Melissa had created. 43 years old, and I was more isolated than I'd been as a 19-year-old soldier in a foreign desert. As quitting time approached, my mind shifted to tonight's routine. Melissa would return home with grocery bags, probably from a quick stop after her hotel meeting. She'd kiss my cheek, ask about my day, maybe complain about traffic or Emma's attitude. The performance would be flawless because she'd had 14 months to perfect it. Every gesture rehearsed, every expression calculated to maintain the illusion of normalcy. I realized I'd been living with a stranger wearing my wife's face. The kitchen table had become my courtroom. 11:47 p.m., and I'd arranged the evidence like an attorney preparing for trial. Router logs in chronological order, bank statements with highlighted withdrawals, hotel receipts paper-clipped by date, Jennifer's photographs in a manila envelope, still sealed. I didn't need to look at those again. The oak surface we'd eaten 15 years of dinners on now held the wreckage of our marriage, organized with the same precision I used reading excavation blueprints. Melissa's key turned in the front door. Her heels clicked against the hardwood, those black pumps she wore to her book club meetings. Each step echoed through the house like a countdown. I kept my hands flat on the table, completely still. The refrigerator hummed. Upstairs, Tyler's nightlight glowed under his bedroom door. She appeared in the kitchen doorway and stopped cold. "What is all this?" The words came out barely above a whisper. Her purse slid off her shoulder, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Makeup still perfect despite the late hour. Hair styled like she'd just left a salon, not a grocery store. "We need to talk." My voice sounded steady, controlled, good. "Sit down, Melissa." She approached the table like she was walking toward a cliff edge, each step deliberate, careful. The chair across from me, Emma's usual spot during homework time, scraped against the floor as she pulled it out. "Steve, what's going on? You're scaring me." I gestured to the nearest document. Hotel receipt, October 15th, $127 for a room you never told me about. Her hand trembled as she picked up the paper. The color drained from her face, starting at her forehead and working down. She set the receipt back on the table like it was on fire. "I can explain." "No." The word cut through the kitchen air. "You can listen." I slid the router logs across the table. 3 months of data, printed on standard copy paper, highlighted in yellow. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 1:30 to 3:45 p.m., someone was using our internet while I was at work. Melissa stared at the logs like they were written in a foreign language. You said you were grocery shopping during those hours. I kept my voice level, matter of fact. But our router doesn't lie. Someone was here, Melissa, in our house, using our Wi-Fi to, what? Check email? Browse social media? Her mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. I reached for the next stack of papers. Bank statements, joint savings account, $2,800 withdrawn over 6 months. Small amounts, $150 here, $200 there. Always on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The papers rustled as I spread them across the table, each withdrawal highlighted in red ink. Funny thing about hotel receipts, they match the withdrawal dates perfectly. Melissa's breathing became shallow. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white against the dark wood. GPS data from your phone. Another folder opened. Courtesy of our family plan. Amazing what you can track these days. 1,247 Oakwood Drive. You visited that address 43 times in the last 6 months. I watched her face crumble as each piece of evidence landed. 15 years of marriage, and I was watching my wife become a stranger. Marcus Brennan's address. At his name, she flinched like I'd slapped her. Insurance adjuster at Pinnacle Group. Married. 2 kids. I paused, letting that sink in. His wife, Jennifer, knows everything. The sound escaped before I could stop it. 14 months of lies, and it all came down to this moment in our kitchen at midnight. She's been documenting his affair just like I've been documenting yours. Text messages, photographs, credit card statements. We compared notes. Melissa's composure finally shattered. Tears streamed down her cheeks, smearing her mascara. She looked younger suddenly, fragile. I never meant for this to happen, she whispered. The kitchen clock ticked loudly above the sink. Outside, a dog barked somewhere in the neighborhood. Normal suburban sounds while our marriage died on the kitchen table. Marcus has 2 kids, I continued. Jennifer's filing for divorce. His life is about to get very complicated. Melissa reached across the table toward my hand, but I pulled away. Her fingers grasped empty air. Steve, please, let me explain. You don't understand what it's been like. I understand plenty. I opened the final folder. Legal documents David Chen had prepared. Here are your options. She wiped her eyes, struggling to focus on the papers through her tears. Divorce means selling this house, splitting custody of Emma and Tyler. They shuttle between apartments, different schools maybe. Their whole world gets torn apart. I watched her process that, saw the reality hit her. Or we stay married. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? Separate finances, separate lives, same house. The words tasted like metal in my mouth. Cold War, Melissa. We're roommates until Emma turns 18. 6 more years. The proposition hung in the kitchen air between us, suffocating and final. The refrigerator cycled on, filling the silence with its mechanical hum. You've thought this through, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. 14 months. Same amount of time you've been lying to me. I kept my tone even, matter of fact, like discussing equipment maintenance schedules at work. Melissa's fingers traced the edge of the separation agreement, reading clauses that would govern the next 6 years of our lives. Her wedding ring caught the kitchen light, still there, still gleaming. A prop now. The joint checking account, frozen. Your name's still on it, but any withdrawal over $50 requires my signature. I watched her scan the financial terms. Credit cards are canceled. Your car payment comes out of your teacher's salary now. The color drained from her face. Steve, I can't afford. Should have thought about that before you started spending our money on hotel rooms. She set the papers down, hands trembling. This is financial abuse. No, financial abuse is stealing $2,800 from your family's savings account to pay for your affair. I leaned back in my chair. This is consequences. The kitchen felt smaller now, walls pressing in around us. Melissa stared at the documents like they might change if she looked long enough. What about the kids? How do we explain sleeping in separate rooms? We don't. Emma's 12, Tyler's 9. They don't need to know their mother's a cheater. The word hung between us, sharp and final. You take the guest room. I keep our bedroom. We're civil at dinner, help with homework, attend school events together. For 6 years? Until Emma graduates high school. Then we're done. Melissa pushed back from the table, pacing to the kitchen window. Outside, our neighbor's porch light cast long shadows across the driveway where her Honda sat. The same car I'd tracked to Marcus's house 43 times. What about Marcus? What about him? I gathered the bank statements, sliding them back into their folder. Jennifer's filing for divorce. His kids will know their father destroyed their family. His colleagues at Pinnacle will find out. Small office, word travels fast. She turned from the window. You contacted his work? Didn't have to. Jennifer's handling that part. I stood, folders tucked under my arm. Funny thing about insurance adjusters. They're supposed to assess risk accurately. Marcus made some poor calculations. The conversation was over. I could see it in Melissa's posture, the way her shoulders sagged in defeat. She'd played her hand and lost everything. Steve, please. We could try counseling, work through this. You made your choice 14 months ago. I headed toward the kitchen doorway. Now we live with the consequences. Behind me, I heard her sink into the chair again. The kitchen clock ticked past midnight, marking the end of our marriage and the beginning of whatever this cold arrangement would become. 3 days passed like scenes from someone else's life. Monday morning, I left for Hartwell Construction at 6 sharp, same as always. Melissa's coffee mug sat in the sink when I returned that evening. She'd been there, existed in the house, then disappeared into the guest room like a ghost. Tuesday, Emma asked why Mom was sleeping downstairs. She's been having trouble sleeping. The guest bed is firmer, I told her, buttering her toast. Technical truth. The kind that doesn't require elaboration. Emma nodded, accepting the explanation with 12-year-old logic. Tyler didn't even notice, too focused on his cereal and morning cartoons. Wednesday evening, I found Melissa in the laundry room, folding clothes with mechanical precision. She held up one of my work shirts, blue Dickies with permanent grease stains near the pocket. I should have paid more attention, she said quietly. I continued loading my clothes into the washer, not responding. The silence stretched between us, filled only by the sound of fabric rustling. To what you needed. To what we needed. What I needed was a wife who didn't fuck other men in our house while our kids were at school. The words came out flat, emotionless. Melissa flinched like I'd struck her. Steve, I needed someone who wouldn't steal from our savings account to pay for hotel rooms, who wouldn't lie to my face every day for 14 months. I closed the washer lid with a soft click. What I needed was the woman I married, not whoever you became. She set down my shirt, tears streaming again. I'm still that woman. I made mistakes, but I'm still... No, that woman died the first time you brought Marcus into our home. I started the wash cycle, the machine filling with water. This version of you? She's a stranger wearing my wife's face. I left her there in the laundry room, surrounded by the clothes of a family that no longer existed except on paper. Saturday morning brought the first real test of our arrangement. Emma had a soccer game, Tyler needed new cleats, and normal families would handle this together. I found Melissa in the kitchen, staring at her coffee like it might provide answers. "Emma's game starts at 10, I said, pouring my own cup. "I know. I'll be there. We sit together. We cheer for our daughter. We look like parents who give a damn about each other." She nodded without looking up. "I can do that." "Good, because if you can't, if you make this harder for them than it already is, the separation agreement becomes a divorce filing. Understand?" "I understand." The soccer field was crowded with families, portable chairs and coolers scattered along the sideline. Melissa and I sat 6 inches apart on our folding chairs, close enough to appear united, far enough to avoid accidental contact. Emma scored twice. We cheered appropriately, high-fived each other for show. To everyone watching, we looked like any other suburban couple supporting their kid. Inside, I felt nothing. After the game, Emma ran over, grass stains on her knees and pride in her eyes. "Did you see my second goal, Dad?" "Beautiful shot, sweetheart, right in the corner." She beamed, then looked between Melissa and me. "Are we getting ice cream?" "Of course," Melissa said quickly. "Victory celebration." At the ice cream shop, Tyler ordered chocolate chip, Emma got strawberry, and Melissa and I sat across from each other while our kids chattered about the game. We were 4 people sharing a table, but only 2 of them were happy. This was our life now. Performance art disguised as family time. That evening, after the kids went to bed, I found Melissa standing in our old bedroom doorway. She stared at the king-size bed where we'd slept together for 15 years, where our children were conceived, where she'd lied to me every night for 14 months. "I miss this," she whispered. "Miss what? Lying next to someone you were betraying?" "I miss us. Before everything went wrong." I moved past her to get clothes for tomorrow. "There is no us anymore, Melissa. There's a legal arrangement designed to protect our kids from the mess you created. That's all." She stepped aside as I gathered my work clothes from the dresser. In the mirror, I caught her reflection, hollow-eyed, defeated. "The guest room has everything you need," I said. "Clean sheets, extra blankets. You'll be comfortable." "Comfortable?" She laughed bitterly. "Is that what you think this is about?" "I think this is about consequences. You wanted excitement, romance, whatever Marcus gave you. You got it. Now you get to live with what it cost." I headed toward the bathroom to shower. Behind me, I heard her footsteps retreating down the hall, the guest room door closing with a soft click. The shower water ran hot against my shoulders, washing away another day of pretending our family wasn't broken. Steam filled the bathroom, fogging the mirror until I couldn't see my own reflection. Maybe that was better. I wasn't sure I wanted to look at the man I'd become. Someone who could engineer his wife's financial dependence with the same precision I used operating heavy machinery. Someone who could sit through family dinner and feel absolutely nothing. But Emma and Tyler still had a home. Still had both parents under the same roof. Still had stability while their friends dealt with custody schedules and split holidays. That had to count for something. In the bedroom, I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. Tomorrow meant another day at Hartwell Construction, moving earth and building foundations. Honest work that made sense, where problems had solutions and everything had its proper place. Unlike the wreckage of my marriage, carefully arranged to look whole from the outside while rotting from within. The house settled around me with familiar creaks and sighs. Somewhere down the hall, Melissa lay in the guest room, probably staring at the ceiling and wondering how her life had shrunk to this. Financially dependent on a man she'd betrayed, trapped in a house that no longer felt like home. I felt nothing about her situation, except a cold satisfaction that justice had been served. She'd made her choices. Now she lived with mine. The alarm clock glowed 11:47 p.m. In 7 hours, I'd wake up and do it all again. The careful performance of being a family while protecting what remained of my children's world. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life she'd given us. And unlike her promises, this arrangement would last exactly as long as I said it would. 6 more years. Then Emma would graduate, Tyler would be 15, and I'd finally be free to walk away from the woman who taught me that love and loyalty were just words people used before they betrayed you. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like staring into an empty excavation site. All that digging and nothing left but a hole in the ground.